Hey everyone, I'm Philip Leo. I'm Church Communications Director at Barnabas Foundation. I'm so happy you've taken time to join me this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're at, for Facebook Live. So good to be with you. I'm also especially excited to be sharing with you a new Church Stewardship Survey. Super excited about all the possibilities related to this tool, this resource for you. We already have 2 churches. We haven't really rolled it out yet. We're doing that right now, but already have 2 churches that are lining up to use this. I think as I share this, you're going to see its value. You're going to see how it's a really helpful tool for you in leadership, in church leadership. So thankful to be able to walk through this with you. The way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna share the screen in a second, share my screen with you in a second. We're gonna put up PowerPoint. I'll walk through the PowerPoint, and we'll even walk through the survey together, and I'll be able to sort of give you an upfront view to what this survey is about and how it works. So I'm gonna share my screen with you right now. For us at Barnabas Foundation, in terms of church surveys, we've done church stewardship surveys for many, many years, a long history, yielding rich results for many churches that have participated in our church surveys. One of the challenges related to church surveys have been that they've tended to be rather involved. They've also taken quite a bit of time, even energy and resource related to completing them and getting results and things like that. Our goal with this church stewardship survey, as we were sort of reformatting it, we wanted it to make it simplified. We wanted to make it efficient. We wanted to make sure that it was going to be a tool for you that you were going to be able to use, not just sort of once in sort of a huge effort to roll it out, but we wanted it to be simple enough to use that you could use it repeatedly as you establish a baseline, as you revisit the survey and re-administer it to get a different read on your congregation. So that's some of the history related to our church stewardship survey. I also want to just mention how important it is here at Barnabas Foundation, is over the years, we've identified 3 key areas relating to generous giving in our congregations and from our members. We've always looked at communicating a compelling vision. We've always recognized the power of vision when it comes to giving and how people give and give enthusiastically when they see what the vision is of the church, when that vision is clearly communicated, when it's a compelling vision. So we've always recognized that. Another factor for us has been spiritual disciplines. We've always recognized that as our hearts grow for God, as we grow in our devotional lives, as our arms open up wide to God, our hands also open up as we give more generously. So that's been another critical factor we've always tried to track. And then third, we're always looking at improving financial literacy. We're always recognizing that it's important that people have tools for growing in their own ability to manage their own finances. We've always seen that when people have a better handle on their personal finances, that it positions them to be able to give. It positions them to be able to give more generously. So those 3 areas have been critical for us over the years at Barnabas Foundation as it relates to giving within the congregation. But the survey part comes in here. We're always looking for ways to measure what we say are our beliefs, but then what are our behaviors? Do what we say we believe, does what we do match what we say we believe? And that's where the survey comes in. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. And then the repeat part, I'll say this again, I've already mentioned it, but it's important to establish a baseline and then continue to revisit your previous data, take a look at it and see how things have changed or how you need to adjust. Let's just work through the question of why a survey? Well, when a church or when church leaders administer a survey, it's demonstrating that they're interested in listening. And I don't have to tell you at all that good leaders and good leadership listens on purpose. And that's an important part of it as well. This is important. I already mentioned this, but establishing a connection between belief and behaviors. I'll just give you an example. We always say that prayer matters. We always say that prayer is a priority, and it is a priority. But what does that look like in the life of members, the members from our church? What does prayer look like day to day, week to week? And if we have some information about what that looks like, we will be able to set strategy for how to grow in our prayer lives together as a congregation. So that's just one example. And again, measuring the effectiveness of programming and resources. Really, this is just using a survey to connect the dots between giving that happens, between the giving that people do for our church and church programs. In other words, another way to say it is, are the members of our church able to see that their giving is being translated into effective ministry at their church? Do they have that sense? I mean, that would be really good information to have. It'd be really good to know that as church leaders, because then you could work to improve that communication or improve ministry. And that's what I'm talking about here. Identify a plan for improvement. What do we have to do to improve how our ministry is delivering, and also how people are perceiving our ministry? So that's what the purpose of a church survey. I want to walk you through the survey. I'm not going to go through every last question of it, but I want you to see the survey with me. A few things that I want to say before I click on the link. First of all, I want you to know that the survey takes 10 minutes or less to complete. It's not the kind of thing where you're sitting down for 35 minutes or 45 minutes to complete this. Your church members will be able to complete it in 10 minutes or less. Also, it's important to stress, and we do this throughout all of our promotional literature, that the survey is anonymous. It's impossible to tie it back to an individual that takes it or a family that takes it, even though it's done through a link that we send to you. There's no way to tie it back. And also, I want to mention too that this survey is complimentary for Christian Reformed churches. There's no cost to this, that this is a tremendous value. And like I said, there's already churches, a couple of them lining up to take it, and we haven't really rolled it out yet. So I'm confident you'll see its value as well. I'm going to click here. So the first section is on mission and vision. And I just want to, this is probably one of the few slides that I'm going to spend any amount of time on, but just look at the sort of the questions or the statements on the left there. Our church has a clear vision for the future that compels me to get involved. The pastor and leadership of my church regularly articulate the mission and vision of our church to the broader congregation. The programs of our church flow from a clear mission and vision. I know that any contributions, time, energy, resources that I give to the church will make a difference in people's lives. You can see how this information would be helpful to church leaders as you think about the ministry, as you think about where your church's ministry is going. How do people view that connection between their contributions and your church ministry? The next section is on church financial resources. It's asking about whether people feel like or understand that your church is providing tools for financial literacy. It's also asking what their impression is. What's their general impression of how church resources are stewarded? How do they see your church budgeting and using resources? What's their impression of that? The next section, again, we talked about spiritual disciplines. Notice the categories across are sort of like, what's the frequency? It's really not trying to put guilt on anyone in terms of, are you doing these kinds of things? It's sort of like, What's the frequency of when you read your Bible and pray, attend worship service, serve, all those sorts of things? Again, the data from these questions will help you determine strategy going forward. Charitable giving. We're not looking for amounts here. How much are people giving? We're looking at frequency. Are people giving to, what's the frequency that they give to your church? And what about other ministries other than your church? Are they interested? Do they ever donate non-cash assets, gifts of stock, and the like? Those kinds of questions. Personal finances, again, this is a touchy area. People can feel funny about this, but we're not looking for quantity. We're just trying to get a sense of what feel do people have around their personal finances? Do they feel like they have access to good sound financial advice? Do they have peace about the amount of debt they're carrying? What about their savings? How do they feel about their savings? I'm going to click on the next one here. Personal planning, again, this is related to personal finances, very similar. We have questions about a will, and depending on how someone fills this out, there are follow-up questions, some of them being, have you included a gift to your church in your will, or other ministry, not-for-profit ministry organizations? Again, that would be good information to have generally. And then there's a spot for feedback. There is just some very general demographic material to fill out. You'll see here it asks about income levels and things like that, but it also says that you don't have to disclose that if you don't want to as part of it. I know sometimes people can feel a little touchy about that, and then you submit. I want to talk to you about promotional materials. This is another thing we're really excited about. What we have for you is we have a packet of promotional materials that includes a bulletin insert. That's a picture that we have here is a bulletin insert. It also includes a series of bulletin announcements that you can also use with your email list. We can, it includes sort of like emails and bulletin announcements prior to the delivery of the survey, and then I'll follow up as well. So there's all kinds of promotional materials. We have a screen for you to show during your services, a PowerPoint screen for your services. And then I wanted to just stop a moment on the survey report and recommendations. This is what church leaders will get back. This is just one of the tools that you'll be able to use. What we wanted to do with the survey results is we wanted to simplify, we wanted to give kind of an overview chart of all the areas of the survey, and we wanted to make it really easy to read. So we designed kind of a pass-fail graph. Not that this would be shared with your congregation. We don't necessarily like to put things in terms of pass-fail, but this is helpful for leaders to recognize and identify which areas might be areas that you want to target related to strategies going forward for growing generosity within your church. Also, and this is another important part of it, Barnabas Foundation will provide you, your leaders, with a set of customized recommendations, and those recommendations will include resources, it'll include tools, ideas going forward. It'll all fix on what you're doing. Let me just share how it goes in terms of timeline. Once you set a date for distributing the survey link to your congregation, again, you just use the email, the group email list that you use to communicate with your church. Once that date is set, then 6 weeks prior to that, probably at about 4 weeks, I'm going to share with you a promotional packet. I'll share with you all the resources that you're going to need, the emails, the PowerPoint, everything you're going to need to promote the survey. Once you send the link out, the survey will be active with your church members for 3 weeks. It'll take about 2 weeks to get a report back to your leaders with customized recommendations. Also, that chart that I was showing you just a moment ago, And then once your leaders have had a chance to digest the results, to think about strategies, next steps, what kinds of things they're going to be implementing, I'm certainly available to walk along with you and have conversations around that with you related to those. And then you'll see the last one. It says, after 3 years, repeat the survey. Again, it's important to establish a baseline, to recognize that information changes, that people's attitudes changes, and also sort of gauge how you're doing in terms of adjusting and promoting church ministry and promoting generosity in your church. Let's see, I think that's, if you have questions, you can call me. If you have questions, call me or email me. My email address is pleo@Barnabas Foundation. I want to just mention to you that we're going to be rolling out a new church group on Facebook. Look for information about this. Look for a link to this in our next issue, our next pastor's e-newsletter called Giving Well. We're excited to be able to roll out a group for Facebook, a Barnabas Foundation group for Facebook, because we'll be able to locate our materials, all of our resources, all of our tools for you very, very easily there. We're really excited about being able to share that with you. Also, keep in mind that the spring issue of Generosity Today, that's a quarterly newsletter designed for your church members around generous giving, around giving gifts of non-cash assets, and gifts in will. So keep an eye out for that. That gets sent to your church offices, and that can be put in church mailboxes. There's a PDF attachment. It can be put in church mailboxes as well. So keep an eye out for that. Let me know if you have any questions. And I'm so glad that you took the time to join me this afternoon. Thanks, and God bless.